You're a champion because here you are, 10 a.m.,
Boom, ready to go. I wasn't going to miss a segment with you and Strick.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
John, you don't want
Strick
to miss
played
a
hurt.
segment with John. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You don't want this guy to – if you skip over a segment with John Strickland, you're going to hear about it to the end of time. Just like Flint, right? You don't want to be you don't want to be the next Michael Flynn around here.
We don't want to be like Flynn around here.
Yeah.
You don't think Lou Holtz would have said, "Oh, you got a tummy ache, Strick? You just sit this one out." No. You're playing.
No. I mean, there's a couple of times that I didn't practice all week that I played the game, like probably at 80, 85%.
Yeah.
During my career.
Put a diaper on this kid and run him out there. He'll be fine.
Yep.
The quarterback might not be, but he'll be fine. Well, we'll talk some ball. Hey, John, how's your bracket?
You know what? I got it right here. Hold on.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Man, we're killing it today. We're reading the internet.
Yeah. Go over that recipe.
I mean, all my Final Four teams are in, and 6 of the 8 Elite Eights are still in. So
who'd you miss?
I picked Duke to get upset just because I think the ACC is not good this year.
Well, it's not.
And then St. John. But you know, it's so crazy. When I was filling this thing out, I almost took Arkansas because they're getting back healthy again. And then next week they're supposed to get their which is one of their best players, back. You know, they set him first round, but Calipari said that I forget his name, but said he should be back this weekend. So they're getting healthy, man. They got some ballers on that Arkansas team. So watch out. Watch out.
Mike, what would the reaction in Lexington, Kentucky be if Arkansas is in the Final Four this year with Cal and the Wildcats are not?
Well, I talked about that some yesterday. Kentucky fans are obsessed with Cal and what he does at Arkansas. And so they're on one hand, they're like enjoying, obviously, what they are doing because they haven't done it since 2019. Do you know that? Cal didn't lead Kentucky to the second weekend since 2019.
I heard that. That's crazy.
It's just nuts. And so they're enjoying that, but then at the same time, they a lot of them want Cal to just fail. They are just so like I made the analogy yesterday, JB and Strick, that like imagine if after the back-to-back national titles, Ray Tanner had just this string of seasons that were not nearly as good, mediocre by Carolina baseball standards. And then a lot of the fans are like, get rid of him. He's clearly washed up, which is what a lot of Kentucky fans did with Cal. And then he takes a job within the conference at, say, Ole Miss. Are you rooting for Ray to fail at that point? Or do you still have good feelings about him and want to see him succeed? Mm-hmm. That's what Kentucky fans are facing in their mind. A lot of them still have good feelings for Cal, and they're happy for him. But most, I think, are hoping that he just completely fails at Arkansas. They don't like the way the whole thing ended in Lexington.
And I would be pulling for Coach Tanner, but that's me. So,
I mean, you know how it goes. I mean, you know, you've had this coach for so long, and he's won a bunch, but the last 4 or 5 years were not what you expected. And then, but it's not like he, you know, the Kentucky administration was just ready to make a change, was part of the whole deal.
Yeah. And most of the fans were.
And Cal felt like, you know, it probably is best if they get somebody new and fresh in here. So he was actually trying to help the program to maybe, hey, let's make a change and maybe it helps. So I don't know why there's so much hatred towards him. But, you know, it's called fandom for a reason. You know, people are all crazy.
Yeah, I would say that. Carolina football fans can be a little crazy too, John, as we all well know. They used to chew you out all the time. That damn Strickland can't snap a football to save his life. But now, you know, now then they see you publicly and they're like, man, this guy's huge. I wouldn't dare say that to his face. I want to read you a quote yesterday. If what the hell did I do to it? Well, I was gonna read. There it is. Sorry. Again, we're killing it this morning. This is just phenomenal. He was asked about LaNorris and the run game and all that type stuff. Not to take a hard pivot from basketball to LaNorris Sellers, but that's exactly what we're going to do. And here's his quote. I want to get you to decipher this, please.
Shula yesterday?
Yeah, Coach Shula yesterday.
Yeah.
He said, quote, as we've seen last year, he's a pretty good runner, so we don't want to take that ability away from him. We want to enhance that. We want to do it on our own terms, not because I didn't understand the read or see this or I'm late. Now I have to run. We want him to run because he wants to, not because he has to. Now, the lasting image of LaNorris Sellers has a little scrutiny to it from some times where he had an opportunity to go in the bowl game and he did not, when he had plenty of real estate in front of him. So decipher that quote for us. What's he saying there?
Basically, he is saying he doesn't want LaNorris to like have it in his head like, all right, if this first guy's not open, I just need to take off running. Right? That's what he's talking about. He wants him to be strong in the pocket, complete passes, but we're also going to design runs for him to run. So he just, I think he's trying to teach LaNorris is like, make your reads instead of just taking off and running, which it has worked good. Now, I know you brought up the bowl game there, but in the bowl game, they had 2 spies on him basically the whole game. So it may have looked like he had running lanes. He didn't. He did not have running lanes in that game. The casual fan may see that and think, oh, God, he could have ran the ball there. No, they had 2 guys spying on him.
And they played a lot of zone, Strick.
They did. They were rushing 3 guys and 4 guys and 1 or 2 guys spying every single time he dropped back to pass.
Right.
And you can be Michael Vick, and there's a good chance you're not going to get many yards when you have 2 guys standing there spying you. It's just not going to happen.
It's the blueprint, I think, of how a lot of teams are going to try to at least slow down Sellers next year.
Which is fine. That means we're going to have receivers step up,
100%.
run great routes, get open, which in turn, though, is probably going to allow you to hold up on the offensive line longer because you'll have fewer rushers.
Right.
I think he's going to have some help from the receiver and tight end position if teams do decide to play that way. Now, let's be real. A lot of these SEC teams have absolute studs on defense, and they're not going to be scared playing 1 or 2 spies every pass play. They're going to get after it. And you do risk the chance of LaNorris popping off a big one if you do that. But, the bowl game, listen, give credit to Illinois, man. They came in with a game plan, and they were like, we are not going to let LaNorris Sellers run all over us like he just did Clemson in the last game.
Yeah, what I'm hearing you say there is Mike Shula took – because correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I think – I had not watched literally a lick of Illinois football, obviously, until basically the bowl game was approaching. I don't think they were a big zone team throughout the season.
And they definitely weren't spying 2 spies on a quarterback either.
Yeah, this was all, so credit their staff for preparing that defense to stop him, and they certainly slowed him down. There's no question about that. But I guess what I'm hearing out of you there, you just mentioned the blueprint moving forward. Well, everybody's seen that. And so clearly Mike Shula knows that. He knows it worked to a large degree. Other teams are, we know what doesn't work against you. Sending the house doesn't necessarily always work against LaNorris Sellers. He can get away from that. And then he's got room to run.
Clemson.
Right. But if we're going to keep everything in front of us and we're just going to minimize you to 2 and 3 yard runs whenever you do try to take off, that's, until he learns to be able to pick that apart through the pass game. So my point is, Mike Shula, it seems what I'm hearing is Mike Shula is going, bowl game, example of how they're going to stop you. We have to make you better to get around that.
Yep, that's it. We got to be better in the pass game, and that just doesn't include LaNorris throwing the ball. That includes receivers getting open. I mean, that's a big component of the whole thing. I mean, you got to get guys open. So guys have to get open. And if they are playing zone, LaNorris has got to find the holes and understand where the open receiver is going to be with the timing. So just all kind of things to factor in on that. I mean, I don't want LaNorris running a ton either, man. I mean, you got to protect that guy some. I mean, he's too valuable to you. So basically, he's saying he just doesn't. He's teaching LaNorris not to just take off and run. Let's get some pocket presence, get some receivers open, get the ball downfield. And if you have to run, we run, but you don't need to force the run.
Not that anybody necessarily cares, but that's going to help him NFL-wise.
100%.
Because he's going to have to do progressions now. This is what happens. This is why Lamar Jackson slipped. This is why other quarterbacks that are just tremendous athletes have slipped in the past. In college, they've been able to get away with one read. If it ain't there, tuck it and run. That's not what NFL scouts want to see because that's not realistic in the NFL. And so the fact that he's going to see more zone, he's going to see a spy, and he's going to have to do more of those. I mean, Shula knows what he's talking about. He's coached in the NFL for several years, coached Cam Newton, among others. So I'm sure some of those conversations that they're having are, hey, this is all going to make you more prepared for the NFL come next year.
Yeah, it's going to make you prepare for the NFL. It's going to make our team better. It's going to showcase him in a good way. This is not meant to hurt or, put handcuffs on our offense. That's not what he's getting at. Listen, you got to be able to throw the ball downfield. And if people are going to prevent you from scrambling and running, well, guess what? You're going to have to put the ball downfield. But like I said, it's not just him. Receivers have to get open too.
Yeah, Shula went on to say yesterday too, hey, he's not running the ball 25 times a game, so that's music to all of our ears.
I don't want that.
No, thanks. That brings me to the question of the week that Alex just totally blew yesterday. Who the hell is number 81? I'm just kidding. Reno Rame, the walk-on tight end from beautiful Cincinnati, Ohio, or somewhere up there. I mentioned, I saw. I have not seen Rasul Faison in person. John, I know you've kind of been around. Maybe you've seen him, but I mentioned to somebody yesterday. When you look at this group of running backs, I think you could make the case for it last year a little bit. Certainly not the year prior because they didn't have any. But this is the first time, I guess, in recent memory that I can look at this group and they look good getting off the bus. Now, does that mean they're going to go out there and play exceptionally well? It's not. I hope so, but I don't know. Who knows, right? But they've got a good-looking group of tailbacks there, John. Like a really good-looking group of tailbacks, and we've seen them run here either in this uniform or if you've pulled some tape on where they came from, like the Faison kid. He's 25 years old, for anybody wondering. He's getting up to Mike's age there. It does leave some encouragement for that group that it looks like a physical bunch that will tote the football this year.
Yeah, Faison looks good in pads. I can tell you that.
Holy moly. He is a man.
6 feet tall. I mean, he's got to be every bit of 215. I mean, he looks good.
And his legs are tree trunks. I mean, they're big.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, I think this running back group has got a chance to be really good. I think just 4 deep. There's 4 guys there, just 4 deep, I think can all make an impact this season at that running back spot. So I think it could be one of the stronger positions on the team this year, to be honest with you.
Well, that would be something. Just 2 years ago, they didn't have one running back.
I know. That was wild, right?
I don't think I've ever seen that. I hope we don't ever see it again, to be quite frank with you. Yeah, what I'm trying to do here is build the picture around what's going on. What it's got me thinking when I was reading that last night, reading that quote from Coach Shula, because you mentioned the wide receivers. That's a heavily discussed group unit on this team. And I kind of agree with you, even though I haven't boldly said something like that, as being maybe one of the better groups, that running back group. And then you talk about the offensive line and all these guys that have been in the program. It's kind of time to go. They've brought in all these transfers. So because we haven't had a chance to look at it, it's almost monotonous. We're almost spinning in circles talking more and more about it. But when you're able to kind of pair some things like what the coaches are actually saying with what you think it starts to give you a little bit of a better sense of where this thing might actually take. Because I'm a big believer in Nyck Harbor. Like, I'm a huge believer in this guy. I think he's primed for a big year. I haven't said that yet. I think this is a good chance for him. So if LaNorris Sellers has all these pieces to work with that the common person outside of this program doesn't know about, starts to feel a little bit better than maybe it felt just a few months ago, knowing what you were losing.
Well, go ahead, Mike. No,
well, I was going to piggyback on what you already said, Strick, because I think it's worth repeating, and I've said it for the better part of a year now. When I look around this league and I see the other quarterbacks that are highly touted and have been highly productive, one of them is leaving, is going to be a first-round pick in Jackson Dart. He had dudes at wide receiver,
everywhere.
NFL dudes. And no, I'm not talking Juice Wells.
Even with Juice Wells, they were too deep. They had just ballers.
Everywhere. Yeah. I mean, Juice was like the fifth best option in the wide receiving core. You look at LSU, always has dudes. So Nussmeier's going to have dudes to throw to. You look at Alabama, whoever winds up being their quarterback, they're going to have at least one dude. Texas had dudes last year. They had the Golden Kid, who's going to be a top 30 pick. The two go hand in hand. Like, if you want a really good passing offense, and Carolina's passing offense was not great last year. It wasn't. If you want it to improve, he needs some help. He needs a guy that is just a game breaker that other opposing defenses really have to worry about late at night when they're trying to scheme Carolina. So I want to know who that's going to be. And Jamie mentioned Nyck Harbor, and I think Nyck Harbor's certainly on the right trajectory. Last year was a major year of progress. I don't know if he's a dude yet.
Right. We haven't seen it.
Right? So
we saw flashes.
We saw flashes. Now I want to see somebody else. Yeah. I want to know who the other guy is going to be.
I'll say this. From all the guys returning and from the freshmen we brought in at the wide receiver spot, I think this is the deepest wide receiver room we've had in 5 or 6 years. And I'm not joking. I mean, just talent alone. Now they got to go play and prove it.
Right.
But the talent in that room right now is as good as it's been in a long time. Very long time. I will say this. The year with Juice, Josh Van, and Xavier, now that was pretty special. But I think all around talent as a whole, this group, I think, has more talent than that group did back then.
Yeah, but we didn't, to your point, and that's, again, like, so who is that year's Xavier Legette? Because we didn't know that Xavier Legette was going to turn out to be Xavier Legette. We had no idea. We honestly didn't really know what they were going to get out of Juice Wells, did we? I mean, we knew he was a good player, but we didn't know what he was going to turn into. The one guy you knew about was Josh Van, and it sucks how it ended up in Clemson that year with that I think it was a hyperextension.
Yeah, it was.
But the key to the conversation that you're having right there is who is Xavier Legette? Who was like last year? And then who's going to be Xavier Legette this year? Again, I think it's Nyck, and the reason that I think it's Nyck is because I thought through about 7 games last year, there was a guy out there trying to play wide receiver in the SEC. The last 5 games, I thought there was a guy who was learning to play wide receiver in the SEC. And now I think that he's got a full off season of preparing to be a wide receiver in the SEC without anything distracting that track or whatever it is. Maybe there's a girlfriend or 2 in there, but they all have those. That's all just part of the college experience. Outside of that, though, like, it's like, hey man, you've been here for 2 years and everybody's been circling your name. I mean, you're on the cover of games and stuff. Like, I think he's absorbed that, and he's got enough. He's played enough football. He's learned from enough guys who've come through this program. He's been coached hard enough, and now he's got enough time to actually be able to translate that into possibly being the number 1 guy. We'll see, but if I had to pick one, that's where I'm going.
Yeah, and you know what? I think him solely focusing on football for the next 5 or 6 months going into camp is huge. I think it's huge. I think it's going to help him more than he knows. And hopefully it translates to the field, which I think it will. I mean, Nick's a good kid. Everything I've heard, he works hard, watches film, out there doing extra catching drills. I mean, so I think it'll translate well for him, and hopefully he can be the guy. But hell, I want like 3 or 4 guys like Ole Miss had last year. That's what I want. That's what I would love to see.
Yeah.
I mean, go ask Garcia. Go ask Garcia how fun was it throwing to Alshon and Torrey Gurley and all those guys. Go ask him how much fun that was. I mean, it's fun when you have really good wide receivers out on the edge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even after that, even after Steven, how many of those guys that Connor and they're all names
Alshon,
we can rattle off.
Bruce Ellington, Ace Sanders,
yeah.
Nicky Jones.
Yeah.
I mean, I could just go on and on.
And that's what Spurrier did as well as anybody. Now, of course, as
that's right. That's right.
DeMarco used to say, not that he's passed away. He's still alive and kicking, but but DeMarco would say on this show, like, there was never a 50-50 ball with Alshon Jeffrey. It was more like 80-20. But what Spurrier did throughout his career in college coaching, because there's a lot of schools in the SEC that have a shutdown corner. I mean, hell, Kentucky's going to have Maxwell Hairston probably go in the first round. Like that's normal. But once you get to the second, third, fourth DB, that's a kid that's not ready for the moment. And if you're deep at wideout, you don't just throw to your primary stud all the time. You can find that mismatch and just keep going to it and exploiting it. That's what Steve did better than any other coach in America. And I'm sure that's what Shula's sitting there saying, I'd like a situation where, let's say Harbor is the stud that everybody hopes he'll be. Well, then the 2 and 3 guys are going to be guarded by lesser corners, and there's your mismatch. And that's what you exploit.
There's your guy. The other thing that Spurrier did too was, even if your top guy was a first-round draft pick and he felt like his guy was better than yours, he'd still go at him.
Alshon Jeffrey, Alabama game all day.
Yeah. You might be a first-rounder. This guy's a first-rounder too,
Yeah,
So
that's an 80-20 guy. Those don't grow on trees. That's a Gamecock Hall of Famer. I don't know if Nyck Harbor's going to be that or not. That's a lot to ask, because what Alshon had, I mean, Nyck Harbor could beat Alshon in a 40, 50, 100, 200 meter. It didn't matter. But Alshon had ball skills as good as anybody that's come through.
God.
The 2 best guys in my time, 25 years of South Carolina football, the best guys with the best hands and that are able to just catch the ball, like go up and get it. Sidney Rice, Alshon Jeffrey.
Yes.
2 best to ever do it, in my opinion.
Both great basketball players.
Who
use that to their advantage.
They just had great hands. They could just go up and snatch a ball.
Yeah.
I mean, you just throw it to those guys 80% of the time, they were going to go get it, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, they had incredible hands, and they also had, like, they understood how to play the game and how to play whoever was covering them. Like, for instance, do you remember the ball that Sidney caught against Arkansas when he turned his body in the air in the corner of the end zone in the student section? Y'all remember that? I think that was 06 maybe. That was last second, basically baiting that wide receiver, and then he turns around in the air and catches the ball, and the guy didn't even know the ball was there yet.
Listen, Sidney came in as a freshman my senior year. I saw Sidney in preseason. I was like, all right, man, this kid's going to be good. And he gets hurt pregame, Georgia game, doesn't play the rest of the year. He would have helped us a lot that year.
Mm-hmm.
So that was unfortunate. But, man, you could just tell Sidney, once he came out there to practice in fall camp, I mean, you could just see, all right, this guy's got a little something. So that was unfortunate. I wish I would have had him in the huddle with me, my senior year, because that would have been fun. But, yeah, man, Sidney could do some crazy stuff. Him and Alshon, I mean, the 2 best I've ever seen do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
How long did Sidney end up playing in the NFL? Do y'all remember?
Seven or 8? 7 or 8, yeah.
7 or 8, yeah. He had some injuries too, like
Yep.
with the Vikings and whatnot. Otherwise, who knows?
he probably could have played another 12, but those injuries didn't.
Yeah.
Not another 12, but 12 total.
What
Just
did
like
he?
John, he was never a burner. But man,
No, he was not a burner. He was just a
No.
possession receiver that could go get the football and
Right.
ran great routes. Okay,
Mhm.
that's what he did well. And I mean, hell, for 2 or 3 years there, he was one of, if not the best receiver in the NFL. Like
Yeah.
he
really
was
good.
one of the top guys.
Well, he was Favre's guy for a year or two.
Oh yeah. Favre used to just sling it to him. You know, Favre
Mhm.
throws care into the wind and just slings it. Well, you got Sidney Rice out there. You feel a lot better about it.